welcome to the first episode of Bear Necessities, the official Coventry Bears podcast of 2021. We live at coventrybears.com, and if you're not already subscribed, then please do so, as it really does help. I'm one of your hosts, Dave Musson, and joining me as always is my co-pilot and former Bears fullback, Craig Cathcart. Craig, it's been a while since we did this. How are you?
Yeah, I'm all good, mate. The sun is out. Rugby league is nearly here, so it's all looking good at the moment. We seem to be reaching the end of this pandemic as well. So fans back in the stadium soon, I hope. And it's all looking up, isn't it?
Yeah, fans potentially back in the stadium, us back doing podcasting. As you say, the sun out, rugby league on the horizon. Definitely reasons to be cheerful. So This is basically the start of our podcast's pre-season work, and we wanted to kick things off just by easing our way back into things because, well, at last we actually got something to talk about. So, in this episode in particular, we're going to have a look at the League One fixtures for 2021. We're going to talk, as we've already touched on, a little bit about the possible return of fans to watch games in the stadium, and I'm sure we'll cover some other stuff too. We won't go too long and too deep because there's still a few weeks left before the season starts. We want to save ourselves some things to talk about, but yeah, that's the rough plan for this episode. But actually, before we get to that, we've got an interview to bring you with Bears Director of Rugby, Alan Robinson. So Craig caught up with him on the weekend, and well, let's not waste any more time. Here's what Alan had to say.
So Alan, how are you?
Yeah, I'm great. Thanks, Craig.
It's been a really odd year, hasn't it? It is a year now, pretty much, since we first went into lockdown last March. And it's been a massive change for everyone over the last year. But owning and running a sports club must have been really difficult for you.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like a year, but it is, yeah. And of course, it's been a massive challenge. I think really because we took things step by step, and I think it was drawn out for everybody, wasn't it, last summer? So we thought we may be able to get up and running, and of course we weren't. You know, that the realities of it was far from what everybody thought at the time. But I think there's a bit of light at the end of the tunnel, hopefully now. So, you know, we're just getting ready for that and getting geared up for it.
Yeah, and what's it been like? Obviously things have changed constantly throughout the year. At one stage, I think it was November, wasn't it, where the players were back training and stuff, and then about 2 weeks later, we went back into lockdown again. So what's it been like trying to prepare for the start of the season with everything changing constantly?
I think last year the RFL's done a tremendous job. I think they've really helped the clubs prepare properly. There's been a lot of work done, obviously, behind the scenes from last summer, I guess, from sort of June, July, when that process started. And that was all then really looking forward to what we needed to do to be able to have a pre-season. I thought we were really ahead of the game. We worked really, really hard to get things set up. It was difficult because, obviously, you could only train in a certain way. And obviously, a lot of venues were closed, and at the time last year, we'd been training at Warwick School, which is a great facility and a 4G pitch. But obviously, it's a school; it was open to the public, and that was all completely shut. So we had to reassess everything. You know, where we were going to train, what we were going to do. I think, thankfully, at the time, I got in touch with Rich Draper and Noel at Urban Sports Fitness over in Warwick. And they're really helpful. They helped us get sort of that venue signed off by the RFL. They had a huge padded area there that we started doing some contact work, and we managed to get signed off properly to do everything in the right way. But I think over the Christmas period, we had a number of sessions there. And then in the new year, we actually had a session at an outside venue, which we've had signed off now as well, which is King Henry's private school on the A45 there near the airport. So it's been a massive challenge because obviously we were lucky to be able to get started, and we had those number of sessions. I think we had 4 or 5 sessions together when a lot of other clubs had made the decision just to wait until the new year. But because we knew it was secure and we had everything in place, we decided to bring everyone together sort of once a week on a weekend, and it was really secure and organised and well and professionally set up. So, but obviously since then, everything's changed again.
So I guess over the last year, one of the main challenges has been keeping the group and keeping everyone in the club together. And we'll have an interview with Richard Squires at some point soon. But I think you've been keeping everyone busy, haven't you, with Zoom calls and everything else. I noticed that that some of the socials have shared that. So. What's it been like keeping everyone, not just the players, but the staff and everyone else, keeping in contact with them over the last year?
I think due to everything that's been going on, it's brought us all a bit closer together. We've got used to that now, where we've been online a lot, we've been talking a lot. So I suppose, normally you might come together and have a training session, have your conversations and have your discussions with players. Now we've had all the time in the world to be able to talk to people, to get the boys in the right mindset. I think we're really lucky that we did get those sessions in November and December and together, because it just got all that out of the way, that kind of bonding, a little bit of bonding, and the boys been able to meet each other properly. We do have a massive, the squad's really big and it's new. So we needed to do that. And I think we were lucky to be able to get that done. And now that we've had that second that another lockdown in January, we've been a little bit ahead of the game, I feel, with that. So, we've been able to focus then a bit more on the online stuff now in this lockdown, and the boys have been able to pick it up and have really got on with it. When before it would have been a little bit more difficult, if they hadn't met each other, and it would have been another extension of not being together. So, really confident that stood us in good stead, and the boys have been working really hard. I've been part of those sessions as well, myself, and it's been brilliant. The boys they're all on there, they're all working hard, they've all got their plans in place, and for each, all their individual goals, and Rich and Dave have been absolutely fantastic. I can praise those guys enough for what they've been doing to keep everyone on track. So I've been really pleased, and it's considering the way everything is, it's good. I think we're in a good place at the minute.
That's brilliant. And you've mentioned the RFL already. Looking on from the outside, it looks to me that the RFL have been a massive support for clubs. Has that been the case with the Bears?
Yeah, I think the RFL has done a great job with everything they've done with the government to bring it to the clubs and to make it easy to understand for the clubs. But I think the fact that the RFL's worked so closely with the government and brought rugby league to the table with the government, has been really, really good, and it's given everyone a lot of confidence, I think, and which is what was needed.
So thanks to Alan for joining us, and sorry that the recording cut out mid-flow. For some reason Skype obviously didn't want you to hear the whole thing, but there's still plenty of good stuff there. So Craig, you chatted to Alan, and we'll touch on the things that that Skype just deleted from the last couple of minutes, but let's start with the things that we did get to hear. Obviously last year was tough, but he sounds pretty positive about the steps the club have taken and just how their new season preparation is all looking, doesn't he?
I was really impressed with how positive Val was. He's really used this year to focus on moving the club forward. He clearly has a very good relationship with his coaching staff, with Richard Squires and Dave Scott. The players have bonded through this period. Not only are they teammates, they're all friends and have met regularly throughout. I know that Alan's got big plans for the season ahead and plans to move the club forward in the future as well. So it's, I think throughout this pandemic, I think, to be fair, a lot of clubs seem to have used the time to focus and be positive and try and move forward. So, some have managed it better than others, but I think throughout, considering the amount of times the goalposts and everything changed, and there was the whole trying to get players tested and everything else, Alan's had to deal with an awful lot to keep the club going throughout, and he's done a fantastic job. Him and Debbie have both been amazing at keeping everyone focused and positive, and the club's in a good position now for the season ahead.
And I think what really struck me listening to the interview was when you hear it laid out, just how much stuff has to be done, like it's credit, as you say, to Alan, to Debbie, and to the coaching staff who joined us for our live video podcast before Christmas, and we were very impressed with. But just how much stuff goes on besides thinking about what happens on the pitch, like all of the detail about having that great training facility secured and then having it taken away just like that because it was part of a school and it was been shut down, and then having to find other training facilities and having to get those new training facilities approved by the RFL so everything was ready to go. And this is when you bear in mind that it's such a small operation at the Bears in terms of how many people are involved. It's not like a Super League club where you've got a whole host of staff doing this for you. And it's, as you say, it's to stay positive as well. It really does feel like the club's in a good place. And it's been heartening to see across rugby league how much positivity there've been, because traditionally we're not a sport that's known for having a positive outlook.
No.
I mean, you and I accepted, we're always ridiculously positive, but it really does feel like there's been a coming together across the sports community. I think there's been some good leadership shown, as Alan touched on, from the RFL as well. So, it all ties into this. Fans are going to be desperate for the sport to come back. And as you say, and as Alan was saying, clubs have taken the time to do some thinking and do some planning. So it's an important year for the sport, isn't it? And it feels like clubs like the Bears and the rest of the community are really getting set to make the most of it.
Yeah, I think last year was pretty devastating for Super League. You had the likes of Toronto Wolfpack going to the wall, and there was a very divided rugby league fans and clubs and everything else were very divided over the issue and whether or not Wolfpack should be allowed back in. And sadly they were voted out of Super League, and things didn't seem great at that point. But since then, I think there has been a real togetherness within the sport, particularly in Championship and League One. I would say, the Championship and League One clubs know that they need each other. They know that without all the clubs in the game, the sport is nothing. So it's really good to see a lot of positive messages coming out on social media. It's really good to see that the RFL had a really difficult job and they've coped very, very well with it. I think they've been a real, very strong throughout this whole process. They've managed to secure government funding and everything else to keep the sport going, and it's looking really good with the season ahead and the timing of when they pushed it back to, and hopefully the return of fans and bumper gates for clubs as well. Yeah,
definitely. So obviously, Skype sort of denied us of the entirety of your interview, and there was a couple of minutes there that unfortunately we didn't get to come through. Just wanted to just check in as to what other key things Alan had to say. I mean, I know we were talking before we pushed record, and Alan was mentioning how pleased he is with the playing squad. And obviously we will be talking to Rich Squires and Dave Scott in future episodes. So we probably don't need to cover that too much, other than to say he's very pleased with the shape of the squad. But some other headlines from the bits that the gods of Skype have denied us from hearing.
So we covered off what the start of the season looks like. I think the first game is, 8th of May?
9th, yeah.
9th of May, and there's obviously been an announcement since then that Elite Sports will start to have fans coming in from the 23rd or 27th of May.
22nd, I think.
22nd. Not very good with my dates here. So we covered that. It looks like potentially, all being well, that only the Barrow game, which is the opening game of the season, might be behind closed doors. Hopefully other home games, fans will be allowed back in by then. Mm-hmm. It's looking really good. I mean, Alan talked about how close the squad were. They are starting to ramp up, or will be starting proper pre-season training soon. They had started in November, but following that lockdown, things were on pause for a little while. We also covered off the Challenge Cup because the Bears have entered the Challenge Cup every year that they've been in League One, and even before that. A number of League One clubs, including the Bears, haven't entered the Challenge Cup this year. The reason for that being that because the start of the season's been pushed back, if all the League One teams had entered, they'd have probably been looking at this weekend to start the first round, and then 2 weeks' time for the second round. So, with the Bears and the players being out of action for so long, it's been a year since they've played a match. It just logistically would have been very difficult to get everyone in for pre-season training and get them conditioned to be able to play a competitive game at this point, particularly as the start of the season doesn't start till May. So I think it's the right decision. I think Alan was, obviously he is disappointed that the club aren't going to be there this year, but he has to think about the best for the players and the club, and also for the league campaign as well. What you don't want is putting players into a competitive game too early and potentially getting injuries and everything else. So they'll be back next year, no doubt about it. This year is all about focusing now and getting the team ready for that opening game. Alan also mentioned that potentially there'll be a pre-season game, and while it's not finalised yet, it's looking like that might be Bradford Bulls, which would be really good. That will be, I think, sometime in mid-March. So watch this space in terms of getting that confirmed. But that's a really interesting pre-season game, and I think it would. For me, it would be quite good if we could get this as a regular pre-season against Bradford. They're a great club, and that would be a really good option going forward.
Yeah, and just lastly, I know we were talking before we pushed record. Alan kind of hinted at his aspirations for this squad and playoffs. They're looking at the playoffs, aren't they?
Well, Alan thinks that the squad is the strongest they've ever had. The Bears have ever had in League One. And mainly it's because of the amount of experience. There's Championship League One experience in the squad. There's players who've played at large numbers of games in League One and the Championship. There's competition for places across the board. There's some really good young players in there. And while in the past the Bears were signing a lot of project players, some of which turned out to be very good players, what they've signed this year is experience, and I think there's no reason why the Bears can't push to the playoffs this year. They're very they've been written off in quite a lot of quarters. I saw some League One odds, and the Bears were 50-1 with the highest odds. So I think they'll surprise a few people this year, and Al is certainly very confident about how things are going. And not only that, he knows he's got a very good coaching setup this year. Richard and Dave complement each other brilliantly and have worked so hard over the last year. And the spirit and togetherness within the squad is really high as well.
Yeah, definitely. So maybe worth a sneaky punt on the Bears as well there at those odds, definitely. Well, thanks as ever to Alan for joining us, and thanks, Craig, for sorting that interview as well. And I know we'll be hearing from him again soon, so we look forward to having him back on the show. Now, before we wrap up this first episode of our new year, I did say at the start we've actually got some news to bring you, and I wasn't lying. It was very exciting to see the full fixture list for the 2021 Betfred League One season released a couple of weeks ago. So in terms of Bears and home games, as we've already mentioned, the Bears are going to start the season at home on Sunday the 9th of May against Barrow Raiders. And then they travel to West Wales on the 15th of May. And then they've got London Scholars at home on the 23rd and Rochdale at home a week later. And then if we look at the rest of the season, picking out the home games. So in June and July, we've got 4 home games in a row. So that's Workington on the 13th of June, Keighley on the 20th of June, Doncaster on the 27th of June, and Hunslet on the 4th of July. And then we've got North Wales Crusaders on the 8th of August and West Wales Raiders on the 22nd of August. And all the other matches are away, with the regular season ending with a trip to Rochdale on the 12th of September. Now, all of those fixtures are available on the Bears website. I appreciate I rattled through them very quickly there. But Craig, I mean, before we come back to the point about potentially crowds coming back, just your thoughts on those opening fixtures, and I guess the fact that we've got them, but that first month in particular, so Barrow at home, West Wales away, Scholars at home, and Rochdale at home. That's going to be an interesting test as to where the Bears are at this year, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, Barrow at home as your opening game is, that's a tough one, isn't it? Barrow are favourites to win the league this year, and they've signed some very, very, very good players this close season. So that's a tough one, but you may as well get these games out of the way. At least it's at home, and the players will be fired up and ready to go for that one. That'll be a good measure of what the squad's looking like, because Barrow will certainly be one of the hot favourites to win the league. It's quite strange the way that the fixtures are set out, I have to say, because 3 home games in the first month, and then there's other months where there's only 1 home game. But I think at the start of the season, what you don't want is long away trips. So having 3 home games, that will certainly give the squad some confidence. The players will be looking forward to it, and there's a good chance to get off to a good start with having those 3 home games, within the first month. West Wales away, that's an interesting one. That'll be a good measure again of where the Bears are, and also where West Wales are, because they've signed a number of high-profile players. They brought in a couple of big money signings as well, so be really, really interesting. I think it would be good to see some of the signings that West Wales have made, but I think the Bears will go there with a point to prove, particularly after last time. Yeah, so that's it's a really interesting month, certainly, and all of those will be tough games, but I would certainly say that there's a good chance that all of those are winnable games if the conditions are right and the squad perform to the best of their ability. As I said, there's a real good chance to get off to a good start. I mean, you saw the year Whitehaven won the league. They weren't underdogs by any means, but no one expected them to push on and win the title, and they got a good start early on in the season, and they just sailed on through after that. A good start will give you confidence and give you once you get a good run going, you've got every chance of doing well in the league.
Yeah, and also look at obviously it's a different sport, but look at the Premier League football. There've been so many shock results this year, and so many teams that have surpassed expectations. Like you just don't know how, particularly if there are going to be a couple of games early on that are behind closed doors, that might affect different players and different teams differently. It might throw up some shock results, and then like you say, if you get a couple of wins under your belt early on, you're building momentum. And this season, not last season, of the last season we had, 2019, was such a stop-start season that it was really frustrating and really difficult to build any kind of momentum and to recover from defeats or to build on wins. This season it is bang, 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 match, pretty much from the 9th of May right through to the 12th of September. So if you get in a purple patch of form, then that's going to be really positive this year. So I'm fascinated to see how it pans out. And that first month, instantly you look at the fixture list and you think, okay, target the West Wales game, target the Scholars game as potentially winnable. But then either of those Barrow or Rochdale ones, you never know what might happen. We've over the time we've done this podcast, we've seen the Bears record some incredible results at home against big teams, and you just don't know. So I guess we may as well come back to the potential return of crowds at this point as well. So obviously there's a lot of ifs and buts here, but if the government roadmap goes to goes to plan there, and that there's, as we said earlier, hopefully only the one home match that will be behind closed doors. So potentially we're looking at fans back for the Scholars game on the 23rd of May. Now, even with social distancing in place, as it will almost certainly be, that would be a real boost to have fans back for that game, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I mean, the Bears don't get the biggest crowds in the league, but what they do get is a very loud bunch of fairly hardcore fans that come to every game. No doubt there'll be big, everyone will be delighted to be back, and I think it'll be a really nice atmosphere. There's a lot of people that I consider as friends just through watching the Bears and going up to the games, and you see the same faces and you have a chat and share a drink or whatever else with people. So it's going to be brilliant to see all those people again, and I think everyone, as I said, will be absolutely delighted. But more than that, they'll be delighted to be watching the team and cheering them on. So expect a lot of noise. Social distancing or not, I think there'll be a real togetherness in the stadium, and everyone will be right on it, having a drink and getting in the sunshine and enjoying the game.
Definitely. And as the first one back, potentially for fans, I mean, the Scholars game is always a close one. It's always a tasty one. And I know from the work I do for 4020 magazine, I was lucky enough to speak to their head coach a few weeks ago about their plans for the season, and if they feel like they're in a similar place as the Bears as well. So it's a really open league this year. I think it's going to be probably the most competitive we've ever seen it. So yeah, I'm counting down the days already. Well, I mean, I think we're almost close to being done for this episode. As I say, this is our first one back in pre-season, so we don't want to overstretch ourselves right away. And we will be back again soon, because as we've already talked about, we've got plans to chat to the coaching staff and do a more thorough season preview the closer we get to it. And of course, there's a World Cup to get excited about too. And actually, on that note, we should mention that applications are open to volunteer at the World Cup. So there are opportunities to do some volunteering within Coventry at the Ricoh Arena for the Australia-Scotland game in the men's tournament. And beyond that, in other parts of the country as well. So if you want to find out more, there are details on the Bears website and links off to the application portal if you fancy it. But other than that, I think that feels like we've covered off as much as we need to here, unless there's anything else you think we should mention right here and now, Craig?
No, as I said, we've got lots to go through in upcoming episodes. Just on the volunteering point, I mean, I'd love to do it myself personally if I had the time, but I know people that volunteered at the last time there was a Rugby League World Cup here. I know there's people who volunteered at the Rugby Union World Cup as well. So I would really urge people to give it a go. It's just a fantastic experience to be involved in something like that, and it's going to be the biggest Rugby League World Cup yet. It's going to be it's looking really positive in terms of it going ahead this year. Lots of good news coming out in relation to that tournament, and it's going to be really amazing. So get your name down and get volunteering, and you won't regret it, I would say.
Yeah, I second that, definitely. Okay. Right, we're going to go off and enjoy the sunshine. I strongly suggest you all do the same. So we're going to sign off. Thanks so much for coming back to us. We're excited about the new year. We will be back here soon. But take care. See you soon. And Craig, thanks as always for joining.
Thanks, mate. Cheers.